Welcome again for the fifth session on this course on you know 10 rules of life based on the teachings of Gita. We saw the concept of duality, right? That is the foundational principle of life, the visible reality. It doesn't matter who you are. Then we discussed about the diversity. There are limitless layers in every aspect of life, right? Whether it is our own mood or in our own family, people having different kinds of emotions, perspectives, realities. Now world is like a jungle. We saw that diversity, limitless. Then we discussed the principle of time factor, right? The time factor, sorry, we discussed karma, that how the principle of karma is not based upon regret, it is action. One very interesting point which I had missed. In the Western world, there is a concept of tragedy. In the Hindu scripture, the word daiva is there. Generally, we translate daiva is synonymous to tragedy. But there is a big difference between the concept of tragedy and daiva. Now, tragedy is a force where you have no control over it, right? You are forced by the tragedy to move on as it is pushing you, which is called as a deterministic theory. But daiva in the Gita or in the karma principle, which we discussed in great detail, the concept of daiva is different from tragedy, because daiva has the past influence but has the power to change. Therefore, along with our past, there is also an element of purushartha, right? And therefore, the whole purpose of avatara coming to this world, it is only centered around purushartha. If the purushartha was not the center of the scripture, right, then what would happen? We would only accept everything as a fatalistic philosophy of Daiva. Oh, it is going to happen. It is Kali Yuga. It is already what can be done. Even Duryodhan could not change. Even Ravan cannot change. All right, we will discuss this in today's discussion about three modes. So that is karma, different from tragedy. That is Daiva, different from tragedy. Then we discussed about the time factor. Again, how they're interconnected to the theology of karma, duality, diversity. What is time? Time is eternal, and events are simply a part of time. And therefore, again, it proves time denotes purushartha. Time denotes dynamic flow, looking for forward, positive, future reality. And event are the present reality, the past reality. They do not have the power to influence to such an extent they can bind us. Therefore, time is synonymous to Sudarshan Chakra. Time is synonymous to the Shad Darshanas. And what does the Sudarshana do? Sudarshana cuts off our karmic cycle. Therefore, whenever people are suffering for something, they perform the Sudarshan Yagya. Right? We discussed that. And today, another interesting principle we will discuss from the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, from the very first chapter till the last chapter, the three triangle of modes is explained. No other literature, right? You will never find any literature, whether the psychologist or the Western philosopher or the Eastern philosophers, other than the Upanishad, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Gita, and Bhagavad, especially Gita gives a brilliant foundational idea about the three modes of material nature. Sometimes the three modes of material nature is discussed in a very simplistic way, right? Another interesting point of the Gita study is that you begin with a concrete reality. When you want to know water, how do you know the water? You know by taste. You study water by drinking in a small glass. So then you connect with the water. You continue to drink water as you grow. But because you are growing, then you start learning more and more about Udaka Tattva, Jala Tattva, Neer, right? One of the five elements. So the water takes the shape of Garbhodashka ocean. The glass of water is easier to handle, and that is how you begin. From there, you go to the abstract reality. The concrete reality is a very simple thing which is required. The abstract reality is the most profound thing. The concrete reality creates black and white situation, and the abstract reality creates a dynamic integration. It is not confusing, it is profound integration. Therefore, when we study three gunas in the beginning of our life, we try to fear tamoguna, we try to shun rajoguna, we try to develop sattva guna thinking that we will transcend and we will reach shuddha sattva beyond the three modes of material nature, right? But if you study carefully, whether you are Lord Brahma or you are Brahmadas, whether you are Lord Shiva or Shivadas, a Shivadas is forced by three modes of material nature. And Shiva, Lord Shiva, uses the three modes of material nature, especially the tamoguna for him. Hmm? So the three modes of material nature are a fluctuating like a flow of river. They are not like a basket. This is sattva, this is rajo, and this is tamo. You cannot place them in a basket. You cannot place them in a refrigerator just like you place in a different compartment different flavors of ice cream. It is not ice cream, it is a flowing water, not like a oil. If you have a container full of oil, it's the same quality. But imagine the river Ganga. She has a different flavor in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, in the summer, in the winter, in the rainy season, in Rishikesh, in Haridwar, in Mayapur, in Bangla, in Kolkata, in Banaras, right? The same river carries different flavor. Huh? What does it indicate? It indicates there are different layers of reality, and all those layers of reality have the power to represent themselves as a great integration. They become one as a river Ganga. So therefore, these three gunas basically has many definition. Guna means rope, guna means thread, guna means strand, guna means virtue, guna means merit, guna means excellence, guna means influence, guna means qualities, guna means attributes, and actually guna means not exactly whatever translation I gave. As I said, there is no equivalent translation in English to exactly convey the meaning, because it was explained by one great scholar. The word can only be translated as it is if the other language also has the same history behind that word. Since there is no English equivalent to guna, three gunas, right? The concept of three gunas are non-existent in the language. It does not mean that it is not existent in the European world, in the South American world, or in African world. But in the civilizational reality, there is no synonymous concept for guna. Therefore, even though we said robe, thread, strand, virtue, merit, excellence, influence, quality, and attribute, it does not exactly define it, right? Therefore, we are experiencing gunas, but we are not understanding and able to explain to ourselves. Hmm? Just like the dog or a cat, a pig or an ass, when they eat nice food, the experience is there, but the communication is not there. They have the consciousness to experience, but they do not have the power to communicate and explain about their experience. They cannot do that, right? So similarly, people experience gunas, but they can't explain because the conveying word is not there in other languages. So therefore, it's our good fortune Krishna is presenting these three gunas. So what we will do, we will do not get into the simplistic understanding of the gunas. We'll go into the greater depth of the gunas. That does not mean that we are deeper. I'm just giving the more deeper understanding of gunas. Right. Now, three modes of material nature, they are dynamic for those who practice yoga. Three modes of material nature are disruptive for those who lead a life of no discipline. Another, this will always stay with people. What is that? Everything is predestined, right? Hundreds of times, millions of people have asked this question about predestiny. Everything is predetermined. All the efforts Lord Ramachandra placed to change Ravan did not work. Ultimately, Ravan had to be killed. All the efforts Krishna did to change Duryodhan, that did not work out. Therefore, whether it is Ravan or Duryodhan, they were chosen by their destiny, their past, to behave in such a way that nobody could change their behavior. This is the fatalistic philosophy. But if you study carefully the scripture, that by using this philosophy, we basically cancel the whole concept of avatara tattva. Right? Because avatara tattva is nothing but trying to deal with the destiny of the material world. If it is unchangeable, why would he come? Yada yadai dharmasya galani. Therefore, the word yoga, again, non-existing in any other literature. Like if you remember, we are discussing about the creation and karma. The Christian world talks about grace. There is no yoga because yoga is condemned also. And the Buddhistic world talks about knowledge, where you deny everything, shunyavad. It is your own practice. Hata, prayas. Prayas is different from yoga. Now, what is yoga means? Bhagavatam explains yoga is nothing but dharma and kriya. Please understand, dharma plus kriya is equal to yoga. Now, there is a foundational principle of life. When you add yoga to it, kriya to it, that becomes yoga. Therefore, what is three gunas? How they are supposed to be dealt? If you deal with them, yoga, dharma plus kriya, they become dynamic, they become beneficial, they become utility centric, and eventually you transcend the three to achieve the highest platform. But those who do not practice yoga, they practice yoga, then it becomes disruptive. One can use the gunas to grow, and one can be used by the gunas to be controlled. The entire so-called freedom of speech, the entire concept of free choices, pro-life or pro-choice, right? Or left wing or right wing, consumeristic civilization as against cooperative civilization. I have the money, I will use the way I want. I can spend 600 crore rupees for a marriage, or I can spend nothing. It is my choice. The modern world has given us such a great freedom, a myth of great freedom. But if you study carefully, understand that how gunas in the centralized system control more than previously, right? And therefore, in the modern world, the gunas have become more multiplying. The principle of multiplying is there, but raja, sattva, tamo, when they multiply more and more, they create a different combination, varieties of combination. There is, Gita explains in the 18.40, there is no being existing. Hear it. There is no being existing either here or among the devatas in the higher planetary system, which is freed from the three modes of material nature. 18.40. In the second canto of Bhagavatam, it is explained. These three modes of material nature, sattva, raja, tama, being further manifested as matter. What is happening? These three modes of material nature, they appear as ingredients, matter, they appear as knowledge, they appear as activities. And what do? They put the eternally transcendental living entity under condition of cause and effect and make him responsible for such activities. Hmm? And therefore, what does it do? The sattva guna. Now, Krishna gives little basic understanding in the 14th chapter, right? And then in the Mahabharata, it goes much great depth. The mode of goodness. Now, what is mode of goodness? The word sattva, again, as I said, the concept of sattva cannot exactly be translated. No, we can understand, we can experience what is sattva. Huh? The mode of goodness or sattva or substance, what does it do? Uh, the mode of goodness condition one to serene living, very peaceful living, stability, rhythm, rita, right? The passion, raja guna, helps us to increase our fruitive activities, action and result. Raja, therefore the word Raja, Ranjati, Raja means a king, Raja means a master, right? Unless you are the master of your own situation, you cannot grow in life. This we will discuss tomorrow. Randomness and predictability. So Raja Guna, Raja means action. Then ignorance leads to what? Sleep, madness, indulgence. So what happens? Modes are in constant struggle for, modes are not in constant struggle. Because of the modes, we are in struggle because we are not practicing proper yoga. So what do? Modes are constant struggle for supremacy within an individual. Knowledge manifest goodness. Passion manifest attachment. Ignorance comes inactivity and madness. Hmm? Therefore, it is explained very beautifully, the imbalance of mix of gunas. Just like in Ayurveda, there is three prakritis, kapha, vata, pitta. Similarly, when there is an imbalanced mix of gunas, nobody, as long as they're living in this world, they cannot say and claim, I'm freed from rajas and tamas. Even to respond to the call of nature, you have to push the excreta, that is rajogun. When you are chewing, therefore they're called as working senses. When you are eating your food, you may be eating sattva guna food, but the process of eating requires rajoguna. You may be studying the shastras, right? But acquiring knowledge, buddhi, buddhi is also produced from rajoguna only. So wherever there is movement, it is raja. Wherever there is rhythm to that movement, that becomes sattva kendrit raja. Wherever there is incoherency in the movement, sometime you rush fast and sometime you break down. There is tamo in the movement. Focus on the concept of movement. You are moving. Anywhere there is a movement, there is a rajo. There is rhythm in the movement. That rhythm is sattva. And when there is a disruption in the movement, that is tamo. So therefore here again, prakriti is inert. Prakriti is inert, right? And Ishvara is the field of that. That prakriti is inert, but it is a field for Ishvara. Ishvara means the living entity Ishvara also, and it is the Ishvara who is the supreme Lord, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Another interesting, a prakriti cannot exist without the gunas, and gunas cannot be displayed without the prakriti. They need each other. Hmm? Right. So therefore, karma pravritti and intense activity is rajogun. So when the Lord comes to this material world, that is Shuddha Sattva. But what does he do? He uses the Kshatriya Kula mostly, where there is a facility for performing action. You know, one of the greatest tragedy of human existence, like for example, Mahatma Gandhi was insisting that everybody should follow Rajogun, right? Everybody should follow Rajogun, but he did not recognize that the non-violence, rather than becoming sattva, at some time that very non-violence can lead to tamogun, no progress. From the Vastu Shastra's perspective, okay, from the Vastu Shastra's perspective, when you call as something a currency, what is currency? What is a note? What is money? Money is representation of prosperity. Money is representation of goddess of fortune. Money is representation of Lakshmi Devi. And what does Lakshmi Devi do? Lakshmi Devi is wearing a red color, Rajoguna. And she is giving abundance, right? So unless there is an ambition for a king, there is an ambition for the leader, there is an ambition amongst the young people to grow. If they're satisfied, and satisfaction is a mode of goodness, and that satisfaction is the power to stop the growth of the civilization and society. Satisfaction should be the inner reality for a person, especially those who are in the world performing their duties, but they need to perform their action. Right? The picture of Gandhi on the note. No, this has to be very important for the growth, because Vastu, the energy, is very important. What does that indicate? The picture of Gandhi on the note indicates poverty, daridrata, right? Now, daridrata is good for a person who want to practice pure spirituality living in the jungle, right? That is not good for the legacy. Therefore, sattva guna in regards to developing the society, forcing only sattva guna on people without the support of rajoguna, what does it do? It creates the poverty. And eventually that sattva without rajo has the power to turn into inactive tamo. So therefore sometimes sattva and tamo apparently they look same. Why? Because we don't understand. So therefore what is it? The three modes of material nature, for that matter, in every aspect of life, everywhere, right? Everywhere they are there. Sattva is substance, rajas is ranjan, tamas is thickness of darkness, and they're integrated. The gunas keep multiplying in so many different ways. Now sattva gives happiness, satisfaction, knowledge, contentment. Remember, we had discussed that Lakshmi Devi told our Rukmini that contentment is the enemy of the progress. And progress for somebody who was retired from the life is the enemy of contentment. If you are 80-year-old, forget everything else. Minimize your rajo and tamo. You cannot cancel completely. Focus on knowledge, satisfaction, and happiness. But if you're a young 20-year-old guy, keep sattva as the foundation, but work on action. Have some needs, some desires, right? So therefore, what is raja? Action centric activities, binds by desire and attachment, longing, desire, action, great endeavor and hankering. When you read them independent of sattva, sounds very diseased condition. Oh, what is this? All about money, all about this, all about that. It's true. From sattva's perspective, from sadhana's perspective, from spiritual perspective, these qualities are binding. But from the world reality's perspective, they have the power to harmonize. Right? Tamas. What is tamas? Tamas is basically sleep, darkness. Right? It is very interesting to understand, if God had not given us forgetfulness, matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha, if He had not given us forgetfulness, if we are too aware about our past, we would not be able to function only. Why? Because our past would be strikingly visible to us. Therefore, what God has done, He added some tama so that we move on in our life. Right? Sattva, what does it do? It eliminates all gates in the body, frees from sinful action. Rajas has a great attachment, fruitive activities. Think about it. Without ambition, you cannot contribute to yourself. Is ambition bad? It is not about good or bad. It is about how much you have, how much you can integrate with sattva and tama and function properly. Death also is sattva, rajas, tamas. Sattva guna death gives rise to higher reality, complete satisfied और कुछ इच्छा नहीं है. We are not discussing spirituality here. We are not discussing yoga or bhakti. We are only discussing how three modes of material nature impact. Rajas, what does it do? Allows you to attain where there are actions and reactions. And what is tamas? Tamas is birth in animal kingdom or animalistic consciousness also. Just see the worship. There are worship in the sattva, raja and tama, right? And what do? Sattva worship creates cooperation. Rajoguna worship creates competition. Tamoguna worship creates exploitation. Sattva worship gives rise to accepting everyone as they are, allowing them to function. Rajaguna basically trying to prove that I have the superior philosophy than yours. And Tamaguna, even though there is inaction is dharma, but that very Shraddha has the power to create violent Rajasa by killing people. Right, in Sri Lanka, one Sri Lankan man in Pakistan, he was tortured to death, hundreds of people. How could you do it? If you're a normal human being with human values, you could never do that. But a human value with Tamo and Rajogun Shraddha, they had the power, a destructive power to kill a person, right? And then food. Now, very interesting. I will come back here a little bit in regards to the Sattva Raja Tamo also impacts us. Sattva Raja Tamo, when it is impacted, it created our personality. Then it creates an interaction of Sattva Raja Tamo with others. There is Sattva personality and there is a Sattva Raja Tama interaction. The language changes. The way we communicate, that changes. Huh? So, so what is it? Our personality is forced by our past. But the beauty of Sattva Raja Tama is they facilitate through different ingredients in the creation who fall into these categories to basically balance between the three. If you are too much in Raja and Tamoguna, can you actually develop some Sattva? You may not change your nature, but certainly you can control your nature, discipline your nature. By what? That is the beauty. The beauty is it is not frozen reality, but it is a discovered reality and adding the flavor of Sattva, Rajas, Tama so that we can function in a coherent way, in a rhythmic way, in a Satya way, right? That means if somebody is extremely tamasic, what do you do? Is it possible for them to develop some sattva and rajas? Hundreds and hundreds of people. It is possible. Those who are eating flesh to such an extent, I'm not saying good or bad. No, we can have a session on integration between vegetarian and non-vegetarian, not conflict. Again, I'm saying there is an integration presented in the scripture between non-vegetarian and vegetarian food. Sanatan Dharma is not pure vegetarian, and Sanatan Dharma is not pure non-vegetarian. It's an evolving process. So therefore, I'm saying if somebody had the background of eating flesh, eating tamogood food, and because of such food, they also develop greater greater flavor of tamoguna, is there a chance for them to rectify? Is there a chance for them to change? The purpose of our entire seminar is to tell that we have the power to change, and there is a process how to change. So what does sattva guna food says? Juicy, fatty, wholesome, pleasing to heart, increases duration of life, gives strength, health, happiness. One of the process of panchakarma in Ayurveda is called as shuddhikaran. They cleanse your mind, they cleanse your body, they cleanse your intellect. Then slowly add a food to you. What happened? You start experiencing sattva guna. You start experiencing action. Like simple, Prabhupada said that if somebody is very naughty, small child is very naughty, what do? You give them a butter which is coming from the cows with a sugar, not the white sugar, the crystal sugar, the khadi shakkar. By feeding them, you'll experience difference in them. In our tradition, therefore, all these processes were there. Placing the anklet, placing the waist belt, piercing the ear, even for the boys and girls, both, putting the tikka. There were particular kind of foodstuffs which children would take. So what would happen? They would not change their particular disposition, but the particular disposition would be directed for the better cause. A kshatriya requires rajogun, right? A leader requires rajogun. But if his rajogun is directed by sattva, then you produce Shivaji Maharaj, you produce Krishna Deva Rai, you know. And that same raja is flavored with tama. That same raja flavored with the faithful tamo, then you create Aurangzeb, and worst it creates Akbar. You know. Now you say, Arey, but Akbar was not so bad. I can send you a video which is fantastically made about why we are saying this. You understand very clearly. If there is a choice between Akbar and Aurangzeb, I would choose Aurangzeb. But because he had certain good lifestyle, faith destroyed him. His radical faith destroyed him. So imagine this very interesting principle. The Pandavas, they had Raja, but they were using Sattva to grow. Duryodhana had Raja, but using Tama to destroy. So both had Raja, but one utilized the Sattva and of course Shuddha Sattva, and other basically became Tamasic and Raja combination, minimize his Sattva together. And he was given continuously the facilities to change, right? But he would not. And tamas prepared more than 3 hours before, eating food that is tasteless, decomposed, and putrid. What is fast food? What is food which is kept? So, what does it do? It makes us procrastinated. It makes us lose the vision of integrated yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Right? They only focus on rogic today. Right? Rogic today. मुझे आज ही विचार करना है. But if there is an integration of sattva, raja, tamo, then what happens? We focus on present, which is centered around yoga. We do not suffer more than what we deserve. We don't become excited more than what we need to be excited. We have a understanding of the past but not the regret. We are action centric for the present. We have confidence for the future but not imagination about the future. Imagination without action, imagination with action without knowledge gives rise to frustration, right? Sacrifice, there are hundreds of sacrifice. The sacrifice of Jarasandha killing the king, what is it? It is Raja and Tama. Narkasur capturing hundreds of girls, you know and misusing them, that is Raja and Tama. And that very girls were captured by Narkasur, Krishna married 16,000 of them. What is this? Yes, it is Shuddha Sattva, but we will not get into that. Krishna married 16,108 women. There was no tinge of tamas. He used the rajas, and at the early morning hours, when the wives of Krishna wanted him to stay longer, he would rise from his bed. Right? So, therefore, sacrifice based on Shastra is Sattva. Matter of duty is Sattva. Without desire for reward, the result will come, but there is no obsession. Rajas is performed for material benefit for the sake of pride. Now, very important, a Raja has to have a pride. Main karunga, that is required. And if it is protected by Sattva, it helps us to grow. And in Tamas, there is no sacrifice only. Place of residence resides in forest. Now, what is forest here? Forest is not necessarily jungle. Gurukuls were never in jungle. If they were in jungle, where would they go to beg from? Tiger's house, lion's house, rabbit's house. No, they would go to people's house only. So here, sattva means a natural setting where you are able to touch with your foot the mother bhumi. You are able to see the flow of water. You are able to see the planets. You are able to see the stars. You are able to see the rising sun. You are able to offer, you know, a bathing of juice, soma juice from Chandradev. Right? You are able to experience Rita as it is, 6 seasons. A simple example, if you want to do meditation, one of the best meditation you can do to expand your consciousness, to become large hearted. You stay in a small place like in Mumbai, in 100 square feet house where there are buildings all over. Sit for 3 days there, looking. What will happen? Your consciousness will shrink. You will not be able to handle people, because for people to become large hearted, magnanimous, we need a space. It's an interesting principle in Vastu Shastra, right? And if you come to a place, a natural setting, where you have a nice natural setting house, so there is a shelter inside the house, but the house is designed in such a way that you spend more time in a open space. One very interesting person who's into building, the natural construction, he was telling me how the old people in the olden time, they did not give much importance to building lavish houses. Their homes were stable, where the house supposed to stay for max 50 years, 25 years, because they would move around. But a house were built in such a way that most of your activities was done in the courtyard outside the house. So the house was built in such a way that you are forced to come out regularly outside. Now people are built houses in such a way they are forced to come inside, spend too much of time inside the house. A sweet home is a sweet home when it's surrounded by nature, where you are most probably spending. You have to take bath. Even if you go to Raigad, Shivaji Maharaj's great fort, I was asking the guide, where were the restroom built? In Vastu Shastra, inside the house, you will never find a restroom. Right? They would go out. Go out for this, go out for that, go out for this. Experience. Therefore, just see the difference between residing in the forest and residing in the house. And what is tamas? Residing in the gambling house. अपना टीम बनाओ, अपना टीम बनाओ, अपना टीम बनाओ, रमी खेलो घर पे बैठ के, right, while responding to the call of nature, while eating the food, while studying also. What they have done, in the name of apna team banao, paisa kamao, inside the house itself the gambling then has come. And how do you expect there will be cooperation? And some stupid vastu consultant say घर में महाभारत रखने से, by keeping Mahabharat in the house there will be a war. Just understand this. Let us simply understand this concept. Austerity. Faith is in the three modes of material nature. Yajna is in the three modes of material nature. Austerity also, performed with transcendental faith without expecting material benefits, only for the sake of higher values. That is sattva. Rajas performed out of, pride, for the sake of gaining something. The rajas austerity is not permanent nor stable. And should we do it? There is a need for it. But again, it has to be saturated with sattva. And what is tamas? Performed out of foolishness with self torture to destroy or injure others. Right? Charity. Is there charity also? Yes, charity given out of duty, sattva, without expectation of return, at the proper time and place to a worthy person. And therefore, charity was basically between the recipient and the giver. There was no in between. You would know whom to give. Rajas with expectation of some return, with a desire for fruitive results, in grudging mode. Tamas performed at an impure place, at an impure time, to an unworthy cause, without proper attention and respect. Vairagya, for that matter, just see how the Gita and Mahabharata does not leave room for anything to say, okay, this does not come under three modes of material nature. Bhakti comes under three modes of material nature. Sattva, performing prescribed duty only because it ought to be done. What is it? That is Vairagya. Renounces all material association. That is Sattva. Renounces all attachment to the fruit. That is Sattva. Now, what is Vairagya in Rajoguna? Very interesting. Vairagya means detachment, renunciation. Renounces prescribed duties as troublesome. Oh, I don't want to do this because it's so troublesome. Oh, I don't want to have children because it's troublesome. I don't want to get married because of this troublesome. I don't want to do this because it is the troublesome. It is Vairagya, but it is in the mode of passion. And tamas renounces prescribed duties because of Brahm, because completely opposite understanding of life. You have Vairagis, but the Gita has the power to judge them also. Sattva, Raja, and Tama. Right? Knowledge, for that matter, again, knowledge. Knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all. Beautiful. This is knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities. What does it mean? If you are actually spiritualist, if you have actual some dharma, then rather than seeing, oh, he is not godly, oh, he is not from my path, oh, he is not Krishna's devotee, oh, he is not that person. When we see divided, we don't see the same spirit in them as we have, then this is not Sattva Guna. Therefore, the test of our Shraddha, which is supported by knowledge of Sattva, makes us to see God in everything and everything in God. Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati. 6.30. Therefore, Shraddha, your Shraddha can never be the cause of conflict and violence towards other. If you are really knowledgeable, you cannot be angry, upset, and having a prejudice towards others. Right? Knowledge in the goodness, in the rajo, knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity. I am black and you are white. I am good, you are bad. It is my white man's burden to what to do, to change. When in Spanish Inquisition, when they came to South America, they captured one of the native person who was leading their group, and they destroyed 5,000 were killed, and they were about to kill him. And the leader of the Spanish troop said, he said, you convert to Christianity and then you can be killed properly. They burned him to death. And now these are not the crowd like in the Pakistan. Is a priestly person giving him this advice. If you don't, we will kill you, we'll burn you to death. So this man said, by converting to Christianity, this is what you become, then I prefer to go to hell. Huh? So imagine that knowledge which is connected to knowledge itself is not sattva. Knowledge can be flavored with sattva, knowledge can be flavored with rajas, knowledge can be flavored with tamas. A knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as all in all, that is tamogun. Without knowledge of the truth, they do perform, you gain something, that is also tamas. Right? Action regulated by shastra, sattva. Perform nishkama karma, that is sattva. Right? Nowadays, unfortunately, even in the spiritual circle, we have an agenda. What does it do? It is spiritual. Unfortunately, it is consumed by rajas and tamas. Without love or hatred, without desire for fruitive results. That is action in sattva. Rajas, with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires, enacted from a sense of false ego. Dhruva Maharaj wanted the greatest of the kingdom. He was not condemned by Narad Muni. He realized he is asking something honestly, I will give him. And tamas is performed in illusion, in disregard of scriptural injunction, without concern for future. Causes what? Great trouble. Sattva, we'll take two more things and then we'll take questions. Sattva, what is that? Performer of action. One is action in the three modes of material nature. Now the performer of the actions performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, minimizes, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm. And therefore Arjuna, he was thinking that I am the killer and therefore I don't want to kill. Gandhi was thinking that violence is bad, non-violence is good. He did not see things from the point of sattva, rajas, tama. Therefore, his non-violence and our Duryodhana's violence are non-different from each other. Arjuna's violence and the non-violence presented by great Lord Buddha, they are non-different from each other. In one sense, Arjuna's violence is much more superior than Lord Buddha's non-violence. Right? A non-violence for a sadhaka living in the ashram is good. But the non-violence for a kshatriya who is about to punish the miscreant, right, is sattva. So therefore, Rajas is attached to work and fruits of work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, greedy, envious, impure, moved by joy and sorrow, celebration and become excited. Tamas is works against the injunctions of the scripture, hardcore materialistic, obstinate, continuously cheating. Cheating becomes his character, expert in insulting, and at the end of the day, he is always morose and procrastination. Buddhi or understanding. What is this? Sattva, one who knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. What is to be feared and what is not to be feared. What is binding and what is not liberating. What is liberating? That is Sattva. One who cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion. It is so interesting that our left liberals, they don't speak about a person burning in Pakistan. They speak about somebody, a stand-up comedian, who was blatantly speaking ill about Ramayana. He was warned many times not to do. So certain group filed a case against him to stop him. And now they're crying, oh, there is intrusion into freedom of speech. Hare, you can speak what you want, but if you're coming in a public place among some people who respect this, there is no blasphemy law in India. You'll not be given a death penalty. The constitution of Pakistan and many Islamic countries have a constitution which have created a blasphemy law, right? So therefore, when they cannot distinguish, we are not talking about them, the people who are judging them, the left liberals, they do not understand. Rajo, Tamas is much higher, considers religion to be irreligion and irreligion to be religion. Always under the spell of illusion and darkness, and unfortunately, always striving on a wrong direction. In this way, there are many more principles of ahankar is there, happiness is there, dhriti, determination is there. But we'll conclude with bhakti. Bhakti in the mode of goodness. Sages and devatas flourish. Shraddha, basically Shraddha. And the devotional service in Sattva Guna is cooperative. Devotional service in Rajoguna is competitive. And devotion in Tamoguna is exclusivist. Wanting to harm others, wanting to hurt others, wanting to destroy others. In this way, when you see many principles of three modes of material nature always existing in every aspect of life, whether it is matter, whether it is knowledge or activities. When you understand this, reflect upon it and use the principle of yoga. As I said, when we use the principle of yoga, these three modes of material nature become our friend. We have become like a very expert cook, adding right amount of three gunas and cooking in such a way it is helping us to grow and eventually transcend all the three modes of material nature. When do it transcend three modes of material nature? When our piety and our papa is destroyed. When piety and papa is destroyed, that means our body is destroyed. Or manas, buddhi, ahankar is destroyed. We reach transcendental stage. But as long as we have this material body, knowingly, consciously, for the sake of using it or being used it, we cannot avoid the three modes of material nature. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Well explained that these are three ingredients which we need to use. We need to prepare and practice growth in our life. We have a question by Harsh Ji. Harsh ji, can you please ask your question?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you much, Mary, for the nice class. However, I would just like to say it was sort of repetition for me, but I would like to know that when you say use the mode, now when I say use the mode, so it generally seems to be physical. Like I can use the food for changing my mode, or I can change my timing of getting up to change of the mode. But how about things which are more subtle, like determination, understanding, and when it's not just how should I change, when should be applied which sort of mode? Because that's what I've done. Profession, as you said, it depends on profession, it depends on age. So suppose I myself is very lazy. I have a nature of being not lazy but content, and the situation demands me to be more active. Okay, so now what should I do? Should I start eating spicy food? Should I start listening to classic music? So that's what I'm trying to understand. You
Yes,
have given a classification. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
I think you already answered the question. Depending upon who you are, understanding your own self. There are two things. One is disposition born out of three modes of material nature that you cannot change, but that can be directed through the process of yoga. What is that yoga? That yoga is, I said, dharma plus kriya or bhakti yoga, ashtanga yoga, jnana yoga. Therefore, the word yoga is very important. So they have the power to make our disposition refined rather than canceling our disposition. And secondly, can I change? Yes, the three modes of material nature, which are subtle reality in our life, but through the right surrounding, through the right food habits, through the right kind of knowledge, have the power to minimize the damage and maximize our growth. Again, therefore, it is very important that the whole process of knowledge, Gita, yoga, is to understand what is my capacity, understand what is my limitation, understand what are my limitation, understand what is the solution for those limitation, and apply as much as possible. And that we will discuss tomorrow, the random and predictable reality. And when we do that, and hundreds of people have done like that, hundreds of people are able to change. It is a real reality. तो उसमें परिवर्तन आ ही जाता है. But again, don't expect to change your inner disposition. Now the inner disposition is more purified. If you have more of a brahmanical nature, I mean content, satisfaction, then it is not worth trying to be aggressively into a mode of kshatriya or vaishya. So what you have to do, yes, some rajoguna is required, because whether you are brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra, growth is a natural character of a living entity, and especially if you are young. Even old age, young age, and childhood is also divided into modes. There is a greater action in the youth. The newborn baby, according to Bhishma, exhibits tamogun, passing stool here and there everywhere. Even a small baby, when she or he sees that another child is coming, his sibling, there is a natural biological envy, because I have to share my resources. So when they are born, they are tamo, but by culture they realize, okay, she's my sister. Oh, realizes my brother. I need to share with them. So therefore, whether it is yoga, whether it is three modes of material nature, whether it is knowledge, it is all about there is a facility for us to change from what we are, or refine what we cannot change, and utilize what we are with what the resources the Prakriti is giving, and contribute in our own growth and help others to grow also. Right? That is a simple principle.
Thank you, Prabhuji. We have a question from Munit ji. He has raised his hand. Munshi, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
That's the side. Yeah, my question is
Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Prabhuji.
Munshi,
am I audible now?
Yeah.
yes.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. My question is in case of these
You're breaking. You're breaking. You're
modes,
breaking. Can you write down? Can you write?
Yeah, I can write down.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
I'll take the next question.
Yeah, there is a question from Arundaya Kirtan Prabhu. He's saying that when we do sadhana, is that also considered as kriya based on our faith?
Sadhana is not only connected to our spiritual practices. Whether you want to be a mathematician, you need sadhana. You want to be an artist, you need sadhana. If you want to be a tabla player, you want to be sadhana. If you want to be a driver, you have to do sadhana. If you're flying a plane, you need a sadhana. So the word sadhana is not only specifically connected to spiritual practices. If you chant your spiritual, chant your rounds, do your yoga, you can't say this is sufficient for me to grow if you are not performing sadhana to grow in other aspects also. So therefore, sadhana is basically connected to every aspect of our life and also the spiritual aspect. So sadhana means there is annamaya kosh sadhana, pranamaya kosh sadhana, manomaya kosh sadhana, vigyanmaya kosh sadhana, and there is also anandmaya kosh sadhana.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you. There's a question, I don't know whether it is relevant or not, but this is from Saurabh-ji. He asked that when Bharat came to request Lord Ram to come back from the forest, the army was fed with meat. So, who performed this activity of slaughtering? I don't know if we can take this or not.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a good, yes. Again, therefore, this we can discuss when we talk on, vegetarian and non-vegetarian, no conflict in the Vedas. The Bharadraj Rishi, the great Brahmana, seeing the different kinds of people in Ram's army, not everybody coming from the same background, he provided according to their habits, their reality, the meat of rabbit, peacock, and deer. And there is always the people who are from the butcher community, not necessarily cruel people. They're butchered. They had their own values also. They would worship Durga, Shakti, and can you say they bad only? So they're violent people in regards to killing meat, but not necessarily going around killing everybody. Does meat eating increases your violent nature? Certainly it increases. At the same time, people can be violent because of faith also. So therefore I said, let us not make it very simplified. There are people, because of their pure habits, they have a greater ahankar because of their purity. That is in the mode of, rajogun ka shuddhata, satogun ka shuddhata, or tamogun ka shuddhata. Right? Rajogun ka shuddhata is like I am pure, and tamogun ka shuddhata is making everybody you are impure, looking everywhere impurity. And sattva-guna purities, they are not bothered by their surrounding. They grow and contribute to themselves and to others.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, there is a question from Devi Radhika Mataji, and she is quoting a shloka, which is Ahimso Parmo Dharmaha, Dharma Himsa Tadevacha. She's asking, where is this existing in Shastras?
There is not exactly, this verse does not exist exactly like this, but there are many verses in the Mahabharata which basically, during the Krishna comes as the peacemaker, he presents the Kauravas this principle, in a different words, but it is there. It is there in the scripture like that. Not exactly this shloka. You can compile shloka in Sanskrit, anybody can, but that does not make it in the Shastra only. But the concept is not wrong. The principle is not wrong. It is there. Yeah, it is there in the many places in the Mahabharata, especially when Krishna comes as a peacemaker. Yeah.
Thank you. Rose, there's a question by Moniji. He's put on chat. He says many times people want to accept tamaguna, justifying tamaguna is also needed to live. In his understanding, is his understanding correct? That always one needs to keep moving in the direction of sattva guna.
You don't develop, so you don't cultivate sattva guna. It is not possible. Just like somebody is working so hard and not able to sleep, and somebody is so much thinking, they don't sleep only. So what is that? There is too much of thinking and there is so much of work, so make them sleepless. So then what do you do? There are medicine in Ayurvedic field also, then there are medicine in the homeopathic also, and there are medicine in the allopathic field also, right? In Ayurveda, our Vagbhatta, today only I was discussing with somebody, Vagbhatta talks about developing, for some people who are extremely content, not contributing. So he explains that they need to take something which is not considered as very pure in the regular world, right? So therefore you don't cultivate tamogun most of the time. Tamogun is there. If you consciously try to be a yogi without sleeping, then you go crazy. As simple as that. So only tamoguna is basically very, very, very less. Only in regards to sleep, I can say. And again, in regards to when there is too much of memory of death caused by rajogun, right? Not sattvagun. Sattvagun memory does not make you depressed. Memory makes you reflect. तो उस समय कभी कभी लोग डॉक्टर उनको मेडिसिन देते हैं. I'm not only saying allopathic, even in Ayurveda, there is such explanation is there. So we don't cultivate tamoguna. We cultivate rajo and sattoguna, but we don't deny the limited tamoguna which is naturally existing within our reality.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So probably it's like if I'm on a ship on a voyage and I decide to use a particular guna to move forward towards the lighthouse. So how do I decide what is the lighthouse of my life? Because based on that, I will change my gunas. I'll move. I will shift the ingredients. So how do I know what is the lighthouse of my life?
Again, as we discussed in our second day's lecture, your disposition does not change. The combination of rajo, sattva, tamo, and tamo, rajo, that does not change. The core ingredient, what you have come based upon your mental, intellectual, and egoistic identity, that does not change. But if it is causing greater damage to your growth and the growth of the society, therefore our scripture, for whether you are in sattva whether you're in rajoguna, whether you're in tamoguna, they've given certain habits to us, during different seasons, food habits, yoga habits, devotional habits, rising early morning habits, food habits, knowledge habits, interaction habits. They've given a certain culture. When you see a superior person, you bow down. Sattva guna gaya. Right? When you see certain season, during the new year, when we are celebrating new year, not the western new year, when you are celebrating real new year, there is a different whole atmosphere. But the western new year, what has happened, it is full of raja and tamo. There is no sattva only. You have to go to the hotel, you have to be on the street, you should be drinking as much as possible, you should be partying, you should be eating all kinds of hotel food. Or you begin your new year, how sad for the Indians. They don't even recognize the new year, which is based upon season. There is a change of food. So what happens? It controls you in regards to not misusing your disposition. You can't say मैं बनिया हूं कल मैं ब्राह्मण बनूंगा. ब्राह्मणत्व को जागृत कर सकते हो. You can develop brahminical quality, right? But you can't start doing the activities of a brahmana. Oh, tomorrow I want to become a good actor because actors are making so much of money, right? So what happens? Yes, it is much more easier to develop lower qualities, but to develop higher qualities is difficult. Of course, even there also, if you want to be an artist, apparently artist, we call them their shudras. Which artist? I'm not talking about this modern film actors and actresses. It is more about expressing their body, right? Here art means somebody wants to make great artwork. If you want to do knitting, cloth, it requires a lot of sattva guna. So therefore no profession is free from the quality of sattva. Mandala art, if you want to do mandala art and if you are very rigorously restless, so make your child or yourself do mandala art, because there is a rhythm, there is a geometry, there is proper measurement. It has the power to make you extremely peaceful, at least large amount of time, and that peacefulness impact your growth also. So therefore we don't want to change. I said disposition cannot be changed, but disposition can be purified by developing the foundation qualities of sattva guna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, if we cannot change a disposition, but if the situation requires for us to move into another guna, because the people you are interacting with requires that. So, what are your thoughts about it?
No, it is not. See, one is first understanding who you are. That tomorrow we'll discuss in great detail. You cannot be what you are not. Even if you do it, you can do it for some time. Arjuna became a eunuch. How long? There is a limitation for doing something what you are not. You will break down, you will crack down. When the society functions in such an artificial way, and you are trying to submit to the laws of society rather than submitting to your own self, what will happen? You will break down. So therefore a human being, an individual, is much superior to society. If a human being does not discover himself and act according to his discovery, what will happen? The society, so-called society, will take you to such an extent that you'll not be able to contribute to the society because you're not contributed to yourself. It's an important principle. Therefore, why the mental care is a bigger industry than the heart care? Because how much we are acting against our core nature. The society is, what is it? It's a consumer society. It is based upon demand. Everybody has to be an engineer, or everybody has to be a doctor, or everybody has to be a politician, everybody has to be this. So we just go by the wave of the societal requirement, right? India is producing large number of cricketers. Tomorrow they might say, what is this? I don't get to play only, so let us start a new political movement that within India there should be 6 countries so that everybody get to play. Just see, their thought would be so stupid, so small, just so that they can get to play. They might think of making, what becomes their Rajo and Tamo, which is artificially developed because there is a demand, there is a money in that, so people want to go there only. Everybody wants to be cricketer, everybody wants to be actors, everybody want to be model, everybody want to be. So when it is driven by economical gain at the cost of your own disposition, it does not create a coherent society, it creates a disruptive society, and disruptive society creates a disruptive human being. So what do you have to do? You have to at least choose. I can't change the society, at least I want to develop myself in such a way that I grow and I have the power. At least I will change 2, 3, 4 people. It all begins with you. You are the most important person.
Thank you, Prabhuji. There's a question by Vinayji related to this. Possibly you may have already answered it. It says, is a society driven by any particular guna? And if it does it impact individuals?
Yes, naturally. That's what now. Unfortunately, previously the society was more decentralized. Now the society is very centralized. You have habits which are practiced by the, somewhere in the American world, in the European world, and you are trying to imitate that in your village. Can you imagine how destructive it is? When we were growing, we didn't know what was happening in America. We didn't know who was the president. It would had to take as a young child. I remember one year when we were in one village, Radhanath Swami asked somebody, villagers, do you know New York? And they absolutely didn't know New York. This must be 95. And he was shocked, kind of like saying that, it's an insult of New York City that you guys don't know New York. It didn't matter for them. Last 2 3 years back, I had taken some people from villages. We had taken them to Mysore. And I was asking the villagers in Kannada, which is the city we have traveled last. They had never traveled from their village more than 200 kilometers. Are they ignorant? No, they're satisfied, contented people living in their village, right? Oh, they lack ambition. That is also true. They lack ambition. But seeing their nature, seeing their capacity, they are meant to be staying there. If somebody had a greater capacity from their village, he decided, I want to go and look for the world, then they should allow, okay, you go, Baba. You have the greater capacity. Again, they cannot force, no, how can you go? You're from this village, like how it happened in 18th century, 18th, 19th century. Many people were stopped from going across the ocean, and they were basically ostracized, right? But Indians were traveling since ages across the ocean, up to South America and North America also, right? Before even Columbus founded. It's not that when we say Columbus founded America, हमको लगता है कि बचपन में हाँ ऐसा कुछ पहली बार, अरे उधर civilization था. There was a civilization, people were existing there. It is not that finding means you found new land. Europeans found new land. Doesn't mean there was no interaction between the local people and their connection to other world. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Can we take more questions?
Last question.
Okay, Prabhuji, this is a question regarding Garbhadan Samskaras. How can Mataji develop Sattva Guna apart from eating the right kind of food and studying scriptures?
Why only Sattva Guna? That's what I'm saying. Again, what is their disposition? Only Sattva cannot be developed. Cultivation of Sattva and Rajo appropriately is very important for them to grow. Right. So therefore, according to what is their background, again, we need Jyotish Shastra, we need their family background, all that has to be seen. And seeing all that, when you apply the Garbhadan Samskara, that becomes more meaningful and fruitful. Therefore, let us not make it very simplistic and black and white. So therefore, a Jyotish Shastragya was also apparently an Ayurvedic Vaidya also. Most Ayurvedic doctors would also know the Jyotish Shastra. So we discussed, there is knowledge in the three modes of material nature. There is action in the three modes of material nature. There are people who are performing action in the three modes of material nature. So all this permutation and combination, when is taken, and then you perform any sanskara, whether it is Garbhadan Samskara or Vivaha Samskara, then that integration gives rise to better growth of a child. Not only just eating food and just reading Shastra or only developing Sattva Guna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. We will meet tomorrow again at 7 p.m.